And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
Los Angeles.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true? Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Coburn's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Phone number 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Look, it's the Hair Loss Show. Obviously, this is the 10th anniversary of 9/11, so I want to obviously talk a little bit about, I said obviously twice, talk a little bit about that before I get into, who we are and why I'm here. For most of my listeners, readers, and viewers who have known me over the years, over the past 14 or 15 years, you know that I was down at ground zero that fateful day. And if you missed it, we actually did a 9/11 show on Friday with the Free For All, the guys from Queen's Network, and it was a great program. A lot of people called in, talked about their experiences as New Yorkers, and even people calling in from across the country to tell us about their experience that day. And I just want to take the time to thank everyone who wrote me this past week. And I mean, my email box was flooded today from all of you guys who knew that I was there. And I appreciate you remembering me and giving me your well wishes. Obviously, things turned out pretty good for me. Unfortunately, not so good for several thousand people who were down there that day. But this is the Hair Loss Show, and I want to get down to business. But if you want to talk about your experience in 9/11, I'm not going to hang up on you, obviously. But, we're here to talk about hair loss, here to talk about what we do each and every week for the past 14, going on 15 years. And if you've been listening that long, and if you were listening 10 years ago, you probably remember that I was kind of out of commission for a while. Lost the apartment, had to, my back went out. It was a whole thing. I couldn't even do the show. So, again, thank you for all of your well wishes. Let me get out the phone number, 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. We're going to get straight to the phones. Listen, by the way, if you're new to the show, don't know who the hell I am, I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I am the author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss, and I'm also the founder of the American Hair Loss Association. And really what this is, it's an on-air support group for men, women, and even children, unfortunately, who are dealing with the silent epidemic of hair loss. 2/3 of you by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. I got something in my eye that is killing me, by the way. Excuse me, guys. And, it affects just about every household in this country and around the world. It's an epidemic of biblical proportions. And sadly, society doesn't really allow us to talk about it. And because of that, the $3.5 billion a year hair loss industry, which for the most part, in my view, and the view of most experts is bullshit, has been able and continues to be able to take advantage of vulnerable hair loss sufferers. We try to help you guys navigate through this industry. We try to give you guys a place to vent and to talk about your issues as hair loss sufferers. That's what the program is about. 888-659-3727. Feel free to give us a call. And I'm going to go straight to the phones. Let's see who this is. It's probably Joe because this light has been on for like the last 20 minutes. Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Hey, obviously I'd like to dedicate tonight's show to the victims who perished on September 11th, 2001. But most thankfully, I'm glad that you, Spencer Coburn, survived. Because God forbid, I know you came very near to forbid we have lost you as hair loss sufferers. I don't know where we'd be today. All I can say is, Spencer, you're a real mensch, which in Yiddish for the lay people out there means a person of high honor and integrity. God bless you, man.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is. Excuse me. My name is.
Would you like me to reiterate it?
My name is. My name is. My name is.
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is. My name is. My name is.
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, thank you so much for that, man. I really appreciate that.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's from the bottom of my heart, because I was petrified for several weeks. I thought that maybe you had perished.
Well, there was a few guys in the industry, and I'm not going to mention any names, who seemed pretty happy about the possibility.
Well, it was all on a lot of message forms that you had perished, and I was calling you continuously. Obviously, you wouldn't be answering the phone.
Well, honestly, I almost used that as an opportunity to get the hell out of this business. I was just going to disappear off the face of the earth. People would have thought I was killed, and that was it.
Well,
but I chose not to.
Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
And by the way, for all of my detractors, that was just a joke.
I know.
Sons of bitches out there, man.
Well, my prayers are with you on the people who perish, and especially thank God that you survived. That's what I have to say. Now, getting back to hair, obviously I've spent the entire week dissecting your excellent RepliCel interview with Mr. David Hall. I really think you're an excellent journalist, besides being a great radio broadcaster.
Wow, you're really stroking me tonight, man. I appreciate it. I love all the sycophants out there, especially you, Joe.
I appreciate that, man. Now, I have several questions about the interview. I have several comments to make if you give me a little extra time.
Absolutely, and you know what? We'll be playing some of the interview tonight as well.
Yes. Will we have a second part to that interview or not at this point?
Actually, I know that David or Mr. Hall is going to be answering some questions for us, some of the guys who have asked questions on the message forum. There will be more interviews with David Hall and also some of the other guys over at RepliCel. So I guess the answer to your question is yes.
Yes, right. Like several people, especially Amadeus on theballtruth.com, like and myself, had requested that your staff, when they're preparing questions, had asked Mr. Hall about would it work with scar tissue. I respectfully request, for myself and other hair loss listeners like Amadeus, you possibly could incorporate that question into your next interview with Mr. Hall.
Absolutely, and actually, we may actually be getting it directly from him in writing for you guys on the message forum. So stay tuned for that. He's going to be answering a lot of questions.
Because as you know, there are thousands of hair loss victims out there who are suffering from massive scarring.
That is true.
Right.
That is true. You know what? I was just thinking maybe I'll play a video for you guys who aren't familiar with RepliCel before you go on, Joe. And I'm actually kind of winging this because I had to separate the audio and the video. So let's hope that I can get this done. Let's see if I can.
I have several follow-up questions after that, if you don't mind.
You got it, bro. Let's see if we can make this work.
Sir.
Hair loss is a common medical condition that can affect up to 70% of men and 40% of women during the course of their lives. However, an advanced cellular regeneration procedure is being developed to treat this condition. First, a punch biopsy is used to isolate healthy hair follicles from the scalp of a patient. Hair follicles are then dissected, leaving the hair's root. The dermal sheath cup which surrounds the root is inverted to reveal the dermal papilla, which is then discarded. In a growth medium, the isolated dermal sheath cup cells are multiplied to yield millions of new cells. These are then drawn up into a syringe for titrated injection. The syringe is inserted into the upper dermis of the scalp, and the patient's own replicated cells are injected below the skin's epidermal layer. The injected dermal sheath cup cells can migrate to damaged and dormant hair follicles to rejuvenate and further stimulate the growth of hair fibers. The injected dermal sheath cup cells can also induce epidermal cells to cluster, enlarge, and multiply to form new hair follicles. As a hair follicle forms, melanin pigment appears within the root. Oil-producing sebocytes develop. These cells divide and grow, giving rise to the sebaceous gland. As the hair follicle reaches maturity, a hair fiber grows and emerges from the skin surface. The anticipated effect of these processes is to re-establish a full head of hair for patients.
Holy cow. Think about that, Joe. Think about if this actually comes to fruition. I got to tell you, there are some real scientists working on this process. It's not a fly-by-night corporation, in my view. This is a real company with real science behind it. Guys like Kevin McGowie and Hoffman, who have been working in the hair world for many, many, many years. Very well-respected scientists. So I'm excited about it, Joe. I really am. And I just wanted to play that video for the guys out there that aren't familiar with RepliCel. And I'll also be playing some of our interview later on in the program.
Yes, I'm, very familiar with it. I brought it about, a couple of years ago when it was formerly called Fractal Science.
You did.
I actually broke that story, I think.
You may have broken that story, yes. Absolutely, Joe. Give yourself some credit. Pat yourself on the back.
So where's my special bulletin? That prompt from...
oh, man, I don't know where is it? Where is it? Where did I put it? Anyway, I'll play it later. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, well, now, as you can imagine, I've dissected your excellent thing. I listened to it maybe 20 times. And as a retired law enforcement officer, I can read between the lines. And I found some things that I have to elaborate on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I don't, all due respect to Mr. Hall, I respect him. He's a probably great man. I don't believe the 2015 timeline. Honestly, I think it'll be much sooner than that because he's not going to give any information out. Of course, everyone, Adirans, Histogen, Fargo, they're all breathing down his neck. Let's be practical.
Well, also, you have to understand he has stockholders. There's only so much he could actually say.
I mean this respectfully. Please understand that.
Sure, I understand that.
Right. And also, what I found very odd was, he kept elaborating the fact that he needs some type of FDA approval. I mean, I can't comprehend that when doctors are injecting whatever the hell they want into people's heads.
No, I don't.
Any type of FDA approval.
I don't think that he actually said that he needed FDA approval. I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to work along an FDA protocol so that they can cross their T's and dot their I's and get this done right.
Well, I've studied, I'm a student of clinicaltrials.gov, and of course I had to study their protocol, and they said that their trials will be completed by 2013, which is not even 2 years away.
Right.
And according to, in my opinion, this needs no approval at all. This could be released within the next 2 years. And I think he gave strong indications, if you read between the lines, that it will be definitely before 2015 outside the United States. It could be very well be Canada.
The Bald Truth Report with Joe from Staten Island.
Found it.
I appreciate that. I mean, I noticed he was giving hints that it'd be available somewhere else before 2015 outside the United States.
Well, listen, there's Joe, you're a very positive person when it comes to these things. In general, you're not too positive, but I are able to read between the lines, in some senses. But there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of guys in the message forums who are like, "There's no way this is going to happen. Wait another 10 years, if that." You know what? It may not happen. Anything could happen as far as the clinical trials may be an abject failure. But do I think that's going to be the case? Absolutely not. I think that this is possibly the game changer or a technology like it. I think that a RepliCel is from everything that I've learned about them, doing it the right way. And I think they're going to get to the end game in a relatively short period of time. Listen, 3 or 4 years is nothing, man. That's going to fly by. All these guys that are bitching, saying, "Oh my God, these 25-year-old kids who think they're gonna find a cure tomorrow." That's not going to happen. So learn how to deal with your hair loss today. All you young guys out there who are struggling with it, who are waiting to start their lives for one of these technologies to come to fruition, don't wait. It could be 3 years. It could be 10 years. But it's going to happen. And I think, that's the positive that we have to take away from this. There are companies like RepliCel who are working on it. And they're getting closer and closer. Go ahead.
These companies know, if I may interject, these companies know the race is on, that they can't afford to wait. Because if someone comes out with a first, say Zarian, that's the person who's going to get all the media attention. And the cat who finishes last will be somewhere far away, losing everything.
But that's not necessarily true. A lot of times in life, the pioneers are the guys that end up making the least amount of money. They may get the initial press. But there's guys that will come up with a better mousetrap or a less expensive mousetrap. And all the press that the first company gets is just going to generate the interest and let the world know that, hey, you know what? This type of cellular hair restoration or cellular hair transplantation is now available. And once the stuff goes online, it's a different world. The media will get it out there, but people will be then going online to do their research. And if a company comes out a year after Zarian's or a year after RepliCel,
right, what I'm saying is, say Zarian comes out with something, probably Zarian in the next 18 months. Where does that leave RepliCel, in your opinion?
I definitely don't think that leaves RepliCel in the dark. I don't think the company's gonna fall apart. Maybe their technology is going to be slightly different. According to them, it is.
Then your impression is that their technology is radically different than Zarian's, similar to, or totally disassociated from?
My impression, according to what I know and what I learned last week during my interview, is that it's different in a pretty key sense. And one is they're not replicating or multiplying dermal papilla cells. They're actually removing that part of the hair follicle and working with
Right, they're divorcing the dermal sheet cup from the hair follicle.
That's right, and they're working with the cup itself and just basically discarding the papilla.
Right, and they also, all they need for their work is 1 4mm punch, which even the worst hair loss sufferer in the world is going to have that much hair loss, unless you're the victim of alopecia totalis, which is very rare, as we know.
Right, and it's not going to work for autoimmune hair loss anyway, because the body's just going to reject the hair. But it's, these type of technologies will benefit people with, common androgenetic alopecia, traction alopecia, different types of scarring alopecias,
right,
congenital alopecias. So I mean, it's very, very exciting. According to yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You're first. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, my final question before we get your next caller, and I know you switchboards are lit up with this news. What is this going to become like Allergan, who's going to have something on the market probably within 18 months? The adipose ITs, whatever the hell they're going to call it.
It's going to be, listen, Allergan's...
How does this fit it?
Allergan's going to make money for a few years, for sure. And you also have to understand that there's going to be, a relatively significant cost for this type of, application, for this type of cellular hair restoration. So, I mean, there's going to be a percentage of people out there who aren't going to be able to afford it. They're not going to be able to get the credit to get it done. It could cost $20,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. And I'm not saying, I think for most people who are really dealing with hair loss and suffering with hair loss, they will find a way to get this done. They'll take out a loan, they'll sell a kidney, whatever it takes. I understand that. Right. I don't think that would work out for you. So, but I do think there's always going to be a place for, at least for the first few years, until all the kinks are worked out of the technology, until it becomes more commonplace, and until it becomes less expensive. There's going to be plenty of room for people to use medication, especially when it's effective. Especially for the guys that are starting early, that are dealing with and women dealing with the initial onset or the initial throes of hair loss. Allergan's new product might benefit them. Continuing or starting to use finasteride, we know how well that benefits for a lot of guys and gives them many, many years of being able to keep the hair that they have at the very least, and even regrow some hair. So I don't think that these medications are going to fall by the wayside, and these companies are going to, go belly up because of this new technology. It's going to take time. It's going to be a process before anything like that happens. It's not going to completely usurp, or it's not going to eclipse everything else that's out there right away.
Right. One final thing, please. One thing I also noticed, very interesting, which might have sent, got certain physicians in this industry very nervous, when he said this protocol of cellular regeneration can be available through your local general practitioner. What's your comment on that, please?
My comment is, I think that eventually that's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to make anybody nervous in the hair in surgical hair restoration, because I'm telling you, the first iteration, the first 4 or 5 years, or maybe even longer, of this technology is going to be really utilized within the hair loss community, meaning that the guys that understand how to and work with hair loss, and the guys that have been working with hair for a long time, are going to be the guys who are going to get this first. So the best hair transplant doctors in the world, the IHRS members, our organization, our guys they're going to be the ones that are going to be handling this, and you have to understand that there's going to be limitations. How many labs are going to be set up? It's not going to happen overnight. So it's going to have to start off relatively small. So believe me, these guys aren't worried. They're going to make plenty of money. I mean, their market is going to grow exponentially, and they're going to be making money for years, in my view, before it gets in the hands of your general practitioner. They're just not prepared to do it. You also have to understand what the possible limitations are. What happens if, and at least according to what I gleaned from the interview, David Hall said that it's possible that hairline design is really going to still remain a factor. So the cells are going to have to be injected in a specific way in order to create a natural looking hairline. It's not just let's implant these cells or inject these cells and hope for the best, it's not like the technology or the cells are going to be completely recreating your a natural appearing hairline. The hair may grow in the right direction, but I still think there's going to have to be some technique and some finesse when it comes to this technology, at least at the beginning.
That's a very interesting point. And just one final thing. When I was dissecting one of the RepliCel videos, I think the guy really made a big mistake when he stated that hair loss was $1 billion worldwide industry. I think that was a fault.
Well, it's interesting because that's what some of the more conservative stats are, and basically what they do is they look at the stats from the surgical side and then the stats from the medical side. They forget about all the other bullshit that's being sold out there. It's much bigger than $1 billion. When you look at the concealers and all the crap and the shampoos and all the bogus products, it may even be more than $3.5 billion.
Right, and listen to this, my final point. Only 2 to 5% of hair loss sufferers seek treatment because nothing really does work out there. Imagine if something really did work, like RepliCel.
Joe, I'm telling you, in our lifetime, within a few years, I really believe that these treatments are going to be available. And there's going to be issues. It's not going to, it's possible that some people may not react well to it. Who knows what the possible issues are? I don't know. I really don't know at this point. But we're getting closer.
Well, just as a long-time supporter, please give me that chair first, man. I am your first volunteer.
Joe, what I always tell you, you would be always at the front of the line. You'll be before me because I don't want to get fucked up. So I'll let you be the guinea pig.
Well, I just want to say, I know you love the calls. You are, besides being an excellent radio broadcaster, I've come to the conclusion you are a very talented journalist and interviewer. Thank you, Spencer.
You're out of your mind, dude. I love you, but you're out of your mind. Thank you, though. Let's take another call, and then
That's true.
And then I'll play some of the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
What's going on, man?
Is this Nate?
No.
Who is it?
George.
George. What's happening, man? You sound different. You sound like Nate.
Nah. I had you on speakerphone.
So
Been
what?
Gone all weekend to Orlando on business and trying to recoup from the brutality of the freaking air travel system in this country and the hell they put you through.
Oh, you were flying today?
I flew yesterday, man.
Wow.
But it's like I flew out Friday morning, like early red eye, and then came back late last night. And it's just like I still haven't recovered yet from this bullshit. So.
No, it's brutal, man. It's brutal. Like
it sucks.
There's only two ways I'll fly now. I'll either fly business class, like with Delta, so you can you get shuttled right in, you go past the lines and all that stuff. It's awesome. Or you go for the more legroom JetBlue, because in a lot of airports across the country, not only you're paying more for the ticket, you get more legroom. You also get speedy check-in, so you get to go past all the lines. Like if you go to JetBlue on JFK, especially if you take an early flight, those effing lines are out the door. But you pay a little extra money, they zip you right through.
Well,
so that's a little secret to you guys. If you're willing to spend an extra $60 or $70 for a ticket, that's the way to go.
Well, I was using American Express points, and got a, it just blows my mind. You use your points to get a quote-unquote free ticket, and then the fuckers want to charge you, $10 in taxes, and then a fee here and a fee there. And then they want to hit you for baggage, which is the first time I decided to carry everything instead of checking something.
Dude, you sound like you're on like Quaaludes or something, bro.
I just woke up, dude. I'm just still trying to recuperate from this shit. I just really tired, really, really, really tired. Anyway, sorry.
Have you missed RepliCel news, man? Sorry.
What did he say?
I have no idea.
What did you say, Big Joe?
Did you miss the opening, Spencer's opening on the RepliCel news? His interview and everything, man?
He's breaking up, man. He's breaking up. I can't understand what he's saying.
He said, Merry Christmas, George. No, he asked you if you heard about RepliCel.
RepliCel. No.
I'll tell you what, guys. I'm going to play a little bit of this interview so you guys can hear what the CEO of RepliCel, David Hall, had to say last week when I spoke to him. This is an exclusive interview that we actually put up on baldtruthtalk.com. And I got to tell you, the amount of views that we got for that, it's just unbelievable. I think within an hour of putting that interview up, we had like 1,000 people listen to it, which is pretty significant, especially in the world of hair loss. So let me see if I can get this thing going.
Spencer, my name is David Hall. I'm the CEO of RepliCel Life Sciences. I have almost 2 decades of experience in the life sciences business. And last year, I got involved in Tricoscience Innovations, which was subsequently rolled into a company called RepliCel Life Sciences, Inc. And we are, as you know, now have embarked on a phase 1 first-in-man trial in Europe to advance our technology.
Well, David, listen, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. As you probably know, I mean, the hair loss world is really buzzing about this technology. They're buzzing about RepliCel. To many who are suffering with hair loss, who know what's potentially coming down the pike, this is like the holy grail. This is the potential for people to have a full head of hair without any type of surgical intervention, without medical intervention as far as taking medication, pharmaceuticals. And again, we're talking about regenerative science that might just, I guess, in a sense, cure or effectively treat common androgenetic alopecia and other alopecias. And everyone's really excited about it, including myself. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, why you personally got involved with this, and then we can talk about the technology.
What attracted me to this treatment protocol was that it was an autologous cell-based therapy, which from my point of view represents a very low safety hurdle. I suspect we're not going to have any safety issues. We can't be sure until we have trials completed, but generally speaking, there hasn't been any reported in the literature. It was not a new chemical entity or a drug-based trial, which meant that I suspect the approval process will be somewhat easier, and clearly you won't be, getting phase 3 surprises from liver toxicity once you get into thousands of patients, et cetera, et cetera. So I was really attracted by the elegance of this solution to this really serious unmet medical need.
Well, why don't you tell us about the technology a little bit? Obviously, those in the know, those who have been going to the RepliCel website have been able to view your videos. They've been able to read what you guys have presented so far. But for those of my listeners and viewers who are seeing this and hearing about this for the first time, explain the technology. It's
actually elegantly simple if you think about it. What we're doing is taking human dermal sheath cup cells. So there are specific cells at the bottom of the hair follicle that are isolated from a donor biopsy. So we do a small biopsy in the back of the patient. We isolate the hair follicles. We dissect the actual dermal sheath cup out of each hair follicle, and then we replicate those specific cells into the millions. And takes about 12 weeks at this point in time to replicate enough cells for this clinical trial protocol. We inject them back into the patients, and we are looking for 2 outcomes, or 3 outcomes. One is safety, of course, because that's the primary thing you have to look for in the beginning, or during all trials. But the second thing is we are looking not only to generate new follicular hair growth, but also to rejuvenate the existing vellus hair follicles that have stopped cycling. And the latter part is actually quite important to us. And what we saw in preclinical work was that we could grow not only new hair follicles, but new hair follicles that had the appropriate angle relative to the resident hair follicles. And we also saw that that the resident vellus hair follicles in the animal models would recruit the dermal sheath cup cells into their cellular structure and grow thicker and more robust hair.
And that's an important question. I don't mean to cut you off, but that's one major question that I've been asked on many occasions, that people are talking about and asking in the message forums. The major concern is obviously, once these cells are reintroduced or injected into the scalp, how do the cells know to create specific angles or recreate these angles, and how do they know exactly where to grow hair? Will people be growing hair in all these obscure directions where it's going to be cosmetically unacceptable? Or are these guys once the cells are injected, all of a sudden are people going to grow hair in their foreheads? How does the body know, or how do the cells know how to recreate or reestablish hair growth in a cosmetically acceptable way?
Well, good question. But what we found was because we studied dermal papillae cells, dermal sheath cells, and dermal sheath cup cells, what we found was dermal sheath cells didn't work, but dermal papillae cells were more likely to cluster together. And so you could generate hair growth, but it in the dermal papillae cells, in our research work, preclinical research work, you had clustering. Well, the dermal sheath cup cells were more evenly distributed throughout the injection region. So
Interesting.
So part of, and to answer one other part of that question that you asked was with respect to the migration. The cells only migrate so far. That's what we saw in the animals. What happens in humans? Well, we're going to test, but we suspect that they'll only migrate, very close to the injection site, into the both into the existing vellus hairs, which is an important aspect because you want to rejuvenate their growth cycle.
Absolutely.
Their cycling properties, I should say, but as well as to generate new hair follicles.
I mean, the beauty of being able to do that is to catch hair loss early and be able to reverse the miniaturization process without having to worry about dealing with any visible or cosmetic hair loss. And I think it's a pretty major situation for women who are dealing with the initial onthros of androgenetic alopecia. If you can go in there and in 3 months inject these cells so they can stop that miniaturization process, you're going to be changing a lot of lives. Well, Joe, what do you think about that? You asked me about the difference between Adirans and RepliCel and, what I thought as far as who's going to come to the mats first and what's going to be more effective. And it seems that the problem with the dermal papilla cells, at least according to Mr. Hall, is that they tend to cluster.
Right. Well, what I've gotten, in my dissection of your report is that this seems to be a much more aggressive and effective treatment than Adiran.
Well, we're hoping. I mean, listen, it's not even my reports. I'm not reporting this. What I'm doing is I'm just interviewing the CEO of the company. The CEO of the company has, shareholders to cater to. And I know that, I don't think they'd be moving forward with this technology if they really didn't have something here. So, go ahead.
I definitely agree with that. But who's to say, okay, they've been doing this for 9 years. Who's to say they haven't experimented on humans before? No one really knows.
Absolutely. Who's to say these scientists aren't doing it on themselves?
Exactly.
We have no idea.
Right. I mean, people be very careful what they're saying because, you're dealing with the $1 trillion. You're dealing with the discovery of the universe. Let's put it that way. This comes to fruition. This will be the biggest thing to hit the planet Earth. Will change society, the demographics of society, the economy of society, the politics of society. Will change the world.
And it's interesting that you say that, Joe, and that's actually profound and very well said because it's true. People who aren't dealing with hair loss, society in general, just doesn't. They don't understand. And I'm going to use the word profound twice in 30 seconds. They have no idea the profound effects that hair loss has on society as a whole. People change their career paths because of hair loss. People's lives are changed in ways that people who aren't dealing with hair loss could never understand. So, I mean, absolutely, dude. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. It will have a profound effect on every aspect of society. It's not just a bunch of, crying bald guys who want their hair back. And sadly, that's what a lot of assholes think.
Well, as I said on previous shows, the disease of hair loss not only affects the individual, it affects those around him. It has a domino effect.
Well, look what it did to your kids.
Society.
Look what it did to your family, Joe.
Exactly. What I'm saying is, everyone is affected by this disease. The world is affected by this disease. That's the bottom line. This disease, among any of the diseases, I'm sure certain people who are listening now will disagree with me, but there's no disease like this disease which will change mankind if it is cured.
Well, you don't think cancer? Come on, Joe. I mean, that's not true.
Yes, but no, I have to disagree with you respectfully, Spencer, because I know you're a real mensch. I have to disagree with you respectfully. Some forms of cancer are treatable, as we know, and are curable.
Well, yes, there are some forms of cancer that are really effectively treated now more than ever. You're right about that. But still, it's still a disease that you're talking about destroying families, destroying lives. It kills people. Talking about changing career paths. Talking about taking a different path in life. They didn't even get a chance to take that path in life. At least as hair loss sufferers, we have a choice. We have a choice to deal with our hair loss in a more productive way. We have a choice to just figure out a way to feel comfortable in our own skin. People dealing with cancer, if they lose the battle with cancer, they don't have that choice, Joe. So I have to respectfully disagree with you.
Well, I do respect that, but the point I'm trying to make is, we're ostracized constantly. We are the largest demographic of society, as you know, but
yes.
We are ostracized by society. Now look at people, I just have a brief analysis if you don't mind. Look at people who are overweight, okay? This condition is brought on, by yourself, yet society doesn't ostracize obese people.
For a lot of people, there are people who are born with a predisposition, and there are people who, no matter what they do, they cannot be thin.
No, I'm not talking about someone who has a thyroid or a genetic condition. No, that maybe it's 1% of people. But overweight people, by and large, they suffer from disease which is perpetrated by themselves, where our disease is perpetrated on us, and we have no treatment. Well, they have a treatment. Stop eating and get on the goddamn exercise bike.
Well, let me tell you something. If Oprah was losing her hair, okay, she would have been running 10 miles a day and dieting the way she did at certain points in her life every day for the rest of her life. If she knew she would not lose her hair if she did that. And that's how most, I try to put that out to a lot of women who are dealing with hair loss, and you're right about that, Joe. If you told a woman that, and especially women who are kind of like just borderline overweight, and they're taking all types of diet pills, and they're getting involved in, they're starting these fad diets. If they were losing their hair and you say, all you have to do is run 10 miles a day and eat this specific diet, and you will have a beautiful full head of hair for the rest of your life, they'll do that. But they can't do that to maintain their weight. It's amazing to me. So you're absolutely right about that. Let me tell you something. You told me for sure that I would have every hair on my head for the rest of my life, and all I had to do is somehow figure out a way to do 1,000 push-ups a day, run 10 miles, and just eat a very bland, specific diet for the rest of my life. I'd figure out a way to do it.
Well, unfortunately, in my case, if you asked me to do that, I couldn't do it because, as you know, I'm totally disabled.
All right, well, this is a hypothetical, dude.
No, but if you told me to divorce myself, say for something like alcohol, I would do it if I could have a full head of hair.
Oh, anybody would, of course.
Or from cigarettes, whatever. But when I see overweight people in the street, they actually, I hate to say it, they nauseate me. Because they perpetrate this upon themselves. And I have absolutely no sympathy for them, with the exception of if they suffer from a medical condition.
I know a lot of guys, they're my age, and they're being diagnosed with like type 2 diabetes, and just, they're just totally out of shape, and they don't take care of themselves, and they eat like donuts for breakfast, and this is all preventable, and they're put on medication, and they're told to listen. You have to take. The doctor said you got to start taking care of yourself, and these guys are like, well, you know what? I want to live a little bit. I mean, I don't even understand this. I know a guy with a heart condition. He's got like 4 stents or 3 stents in his heart, and that's you too, Joe. I don't know. You have any stents in your heart?
Yes, I have some.
Okay. And they just, they don't give a shit. They'll eat fatty foods, animal products, meat, all that stuff. When we know, and this goes for you too, Joe, when we know that you can actually reverse that plaque now, they're finding out. Now, George, are you still on the line, George?
Yes, I am. I wanted to ask a question and make an observational comment when you guys come up for air.
We're coming up for air now.
I was so fascinated by your exchange with Joe. I was riveted. I just didn't want to even breathe because I was really getting into your exchange. So,
really,
thank you.
Yeah,
well, I think you're the only one on the planet, but thank you for that. Anyway, we're talking about dietary changes. We're talking about I just happened to bring up Joe and his heart condition. I mean, you know all about this stuff, man.
Yeah, in fact, I was talking with my buddies today. It's funny, Spencer, how you were mentioning that. I was talking to a buddy who lives in South Carolina who grew up in Jersey. And I've told you about this guy before. He grew up the son of an anesthesiologist. His father passed away a couple of years ago. His father was a very wealthy man, and this guy grew up with like 8 brothers and sisters, and he had undiagnosed bipolar disorder for a lot of his life. We worked together about a quarter of a century ago. We worked together for like 3 months in the medical equipment business, and that's where I met the guy. And he's one of these guys that, you know, because of his undiagnosed, ended up ruining his health. And he had a brother, you know, an older brother who was a neurologist, MD, and a father who was an anesthesiologist. He was undiagnosed, ruined his health, and now at like 52 something, the guy can barely walk. He has abdominal aortic bypass, and he has stents in his heart, and he has diabetes, and he's on a freaking million drugs, you know, and he's just these guys is a physical wreck, you know, and now that. And he, when we reestablished contact 2 or 3 years ago, he called me up and he said, "Do you remember how you were always dragging me to health food stores to eat when we were working together, and how you were always preaching to me, you know, 20, something years ago?" And he said, "I was always laughing it off." You know, when we met, I was 24 and he was 27, and the guy was chain smoking cigarettes. He carried a bag around at 27, a little duffel bag full of medications, prescription meds that he was on, blood pressure, you know, at 27, blood pressure and this and that and the other, and psychotropic drugs and all that crap. And I was constantly preaching him about cleaning his act up. If you don't clean your act up, dude, you're going to pay for this shit. It's going to catch up with you. And I was, you know, and I was practically a kid. You know, I wasn't long out of college at that time. So he called me up like 3 years ago, and he said, "You know, you used to tell me all that stuff, you know, and I used to just ignore you and laugh you off." And he said, "Is it too late for me? Is it too late for me to change?" And this is after, you know, abdominal aortic bypasses. He can barely walk because the blood flow to his legs is so compromised. You know, stents in his heart and all this stuff, you know, and the guy's just a physical wreck. And I said, "Well, it's never too late to change, and, you know, until you're dead. I mean, you can reverse this stuff. A lot of it, you can improve it, but, you know, it's really sad." We were talking about the heart stuff today, but yeah, I see your point with Joe, but I have to agree with Joe about, and I mean, I have, everyone in my family is obese, you know, and it sickens me because they brought it on themselves. I agree with Joe. They brought it on themselves. You know, I have the same genetics as these people, and you know, when I was a kid, I was an overweight kid. I mean, I wasn't grossly obese. I was never grossly obese, but I was a fat kid growing up. And then when 15, I got in martial arts, and I either, you know, I had to lose weight, either lose weight or get the hell beat out of me or drop dead of a heart attack. I mean, I had to get in shape. And, you know, I've been really mindful of health and wellness. I mean, my weight has fluctuated up and down a couple of times when I was in college under a lot of stress, you know, a couple of stressful times. But, you know, it never got so out of control that I couldn't bring it back to an optimal situation. You know, and I've maintained it near an optimal weight for almost all of my adult life. And I agree with Joe. You know, when people get really, really grossly obese, there's very few of them that get that way because they have an inborn error of metabolism. They run their metabolism down, you know, off the tracks.
I have a friend of mine that I grew up with who is just the most wonderful dude in the world. I mean, this is a guy that you would call at 2 o'clock in the morning if you needed to bury a body. You know what I mean? You ever know a guy like that? He's just one of those dudes. But, I mean, and we all smoked as kids, and, you know, he just continues to smoke the same amount that he used to smoke. And we were at the dinner the other night when I was back in New York, and it was like every 10 minutes he had to go out and have a cigarette. And I look at him, he doesn't really take great care of himself, he doesn't eat right, and I look at this guy, I'm like, you know, he's 47 now, he's a year older than I am, and I mean, he's a good-looking dude and everything, he still looks okay, but I mean, you can see it on him, and I know that it could be reversed, and I just wonder, I look at this guy, I'm like, I wonder what's going on inside of his body, and it breaks my heart to see what he's doing to himself.
You know what's going on inside his body, and we all know people like that. I have a cousin down on the coast, about 60 miles south of me, who is like 50, I guess he's 52 or 53, several years older than me. He went through a horrible divorce with this crazy nut girl he was married to. He got he got partial custody of his son, but this guy is an engineer. His brother, my other cousin, who's like the same age as me, we were born with like a month of each other, just got at 48 last year, he just got a PhD in clinical psychology, and he's telling his brother, look, if you don't stop smoking. And his brother's an engineer, he's a well-educated guy. He said, if you don't stop smoking, I'm going to end up raising your kid, because, this guy chain smokes. We all know.
But let me tell you, you're like a really clean living guy. I love having a couple of Jack Daniels and smoking a cigarette. Now, I usually don't pick up that cigarette. It's like, I do that like years apart in my life. Like I think the last time I was in, it was with the guys from GFQ. I had like a half of one and I got a little dizzy and I put it down. But, I understand what it's like to have that enjoyment. But I also know that it's not something you can do on a regular basis. You can't be a smoker. It cannot happen if you want to maintain even a somewhat healthy life. It destroys every cell in your body.
Absolutely. It blows my mind to see what really sickens and saddens me is to see really attractive young people, boys and girls, getting into smoking when they're kids, when they're really attractive people. And I'm thinking, in a few years, you're gonna go from being as beautiful as you are now to looking like a physical wreck.
Yeah, but that's the way life was. We were all attractive. I mean, not everyone, but when you're young, as long as you're not totally effed up, you're pretty attractive. And I was a young kid, and that was part of being cool. That was part of socializing when I was growing up in the 70s. That was just part of, I came from a household of smokers. It was like it was just in me. And I grew up with smoke. I mean, every waking moment, I would say, as a kid in that apartment, there was smoke. Sometimes I wonder if, they talk about secondhand smoke and just how damaging it is. Sometimes I wonder if you were presented with this as a young child and your mother even smoked when you were in the womb, if you are not somehow, I'm not going to say immune, but maybe somehow immune. Because I'll tell you, interestingly enough, I had my lungs checked out a few years ago after I did smoke, after I was born in a smoker's house. And, the doctor was like, I don't really see any damage here. I don't even know how that's possible, but I guess it depends on, maybe it just depends on genetics as well. But what do you think about that, George?
Well, it's interesting you make that observation, and I want to get back to the triclosan. Is it triclosan? Is that the name of this thing?
It's RepliCel.
RepliCel.
RepliCel, like replication.
RepliCel. Okay, yeah, I want to get back to that because I'm really excited. I wanted to ask a couple of questions about that and make a comment. But it's interesting you mentioned that because you and I grew up in sort of a parallel situation. I grew up in a household with two parents that both smoked like crazy. My dad picked it up in the Air Force, and then I don't know if my mom picked it up from him, but I don't remember when she started. But they both smoked, and it was like hell for me. I hated being around cigarette smoke. I remember as a kid going places and being in the effing car and being stuck in there. And that's back, when I grew up back. You remember back when they had those little vent windows that you could crank out,
Oh, yeah.
Front. And, young people don't know about those things because they haven't been around for many years.
We're still young. We're young. I mean, people don't think, when you give our number out, people don't think you're young. But once they get to our age, you're going to realize that's pretty young.
Yeah, it's pretty young.
You got a lot of living to do, and I really believe that these next few years, this next decade, probably will be the most productive years of my life.
Well, I'm thinking the same thing for myself. I agree with you, and I'm more excited about. I never thought in the past that that reaching this point that I would feel like my best years were ahead of me. But it's weird how that happens. But I remember being in the car and being forced to breathe cigarette smoke, being at home, and I'm raising hell all those years, and then. I'm sort of scared to get my lung volume checked. I don't feel like I've lost any lung capacity, but I'm sort of scared to get it checked because I was exposed to so much of that growing up. I don't have any symptoms of asthma or anything like that. But my dad, in his late 70s, he smoked for so long. I finally got him in about 15 years or so ago, to my allergy doctor, and she's asthma, allergy, immunology, and he was like right on the edge of developing emphysema.
Oh, my mother had severe emphysema. My mother ended up dying of hydroencephalitis, but complications from emphysema. And
I'm so sorry, man, but I got him into a doctor, and she turned the situation around. She was lucky you got him in when you did. She said he was right on the edge of emphysema, and she was able to bring him back from the brink.
It's amazing.
I mean,
why does this conversation make me want to smoke though? That's my sickness.
Well, the thing is that it blows my mind to see people. So I raised so much hell that I eventually got my dad and my mom off the cigarettes. I mean, they used to throw me out of the house on a regular basis. I'd go by to visit, and I would raise so much hell because I worked for a few months in the medical equipment business, and all my clients were COPD and lung cancer patients and all that. I was taking equipment there, and I did that just for a few months, to make a little bit of money while I was working on another deal, and getting into the government. So it was a nightmare watching all these people die of lung cancer and COPD and emphysema, and I saw it happen over and over and over again, and it was a freaking nightmare. So I raised so much hell, they all got off the stuff, and I'm just wondering, how much damage was done to me. But the human body has such an amazing ability to turn this stuff around. I mean, if you don't, unless it gets to the point where it gets into emphysema and you got that downward slide that's irreversible. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that is reversible. I
don't know. My doctor, could have been like Dr. Vinny Boombatz, the guy that I went to. I don't know if he just couldn't read an X-ray or whatever it was. But, for the most part, I was also at one point in my life, for a short stint, I was a medical administrator for a national HMO. And I think I told you guys this. And that was like the last job, a real job that I ever had. I was a very young guy. And they had these spirometers, on these outreach programs that I used to do. And I would breathe in this. And I was smoking, kind of smoking at the time. Not really. I wouldn't buy my own cigarettes, but, all the girls at the place smoked, so I would smoke at lunch, whatever it is. And I always blew almost a perfect reading. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I was an athlete as a kid. I always exercised to some degree. There was a one point where I was really heavy into lifting weights and training like that. I also played baseball. I played basketball. I played tennis. I don't know. I don't know if and I don't know if I'm fooling myself. I don't know if when I'm 65 years old, they're going to find a spot on my lung because I smoked at one point in my life or because I grew up in a smoker's house. Who knows? But anyway, listen, Andrew Zarian actually just Skyped in, so let me pot him up, and then we can talk more about RepliCel. Andrew, what's happening, man?
Hey, Spence, what's going on?
Not much. Doing a little show here.
Yeah, I see. I'm enjoying it.
Good. So what's going on?
Justin and I just finished 2 bottles of wine.
That's nice. It's a Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, was it in celebration of, or was it in remembrance of, since it's the 10th anniversary of 9/11? You celebrating that you're alive?
I think I had to drink. I watched so much of it today.
Yeah.
It was just overwhelming, and I said I gotta have something to drink.
I chose not to play any video or sound clips of any of the of the memorial ceremonies or the anniversary, and I opened talking about my experience to some degree and thanking all of those who took the time to write me, but in my view, for me at least, life has to go on. I just have to move forward and do my thing. And this is about business, man. I got to get to business and get this hair loss stuff out to my listeners.
You know what happened with me today? I generally don't get offended by that conspiracy theory stuff, and I've even entertained it. And on Friday, we even spoke about how I'll look it up and I'll talk to them and just to see what they're thinking. But I don't know. Today, it hit me really bad. I just got really annoyed by this stuff.
Well, I get annoyed by it, honestly, and I'm not generally a conspiracy theorist. And when I did, look at this with my eyes open, so to speak, when all of the initially when all of the conspiracy theories started to come into play. But when I see these young kids write some of the stuff that they're writing on Facebook, and I'm just like, God, these guys just are so ignorant. They have no idea what they have to be a part of this country.
Oh no, I know. It got really bad, and there's a couple of people on my Facebook that started posting about that stuff, and I got so annoyed.
Now George is a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but George comes to it, in my view, from kind of like a different, more of a patriotic angle, right, George?
Absolutely, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There are certain areas where I'm a conspiracy realist. There are certain groups that have actually admitted that they're all about destroying the country and about bringing us into global governance. Right. The Council on Foreign Relations being one of them. They publish in their magazine, you could pick up at any freaking bookstore, Foreign Affairs, where they published in 1974 an article where the guy, one of the wheels of it, Richard Gardner, said in The Hard Road to World Order, he said, hey, we can't ever destroy this Constitution in this country directly. We have to do it by doing an end run around constitutional sovereignty, by involving the U.S. and entangling foreign treaties that will basically supersede constitutional sovereignty. Ron Paul said it. He said, hey, when they said, oh, Dr. Paul, are you one of these conspiracy nuts? He said, hey, these groups that said they want to destroy the U.S. Constitution and bring us into global government, they're very open about their goals. So where the hell is the conspiracy? When they come out and openly say it, where the hell is the conspiracy? This is what pisses me off.
It's not a conspiracy if they're saying it.
Exactly, because they come out and admit that that's their goal, to destroy the country and bring us into global government and make us all slaves on the global plantation. When they say that's their goal, and people say, well, you're a conspiracy nut. Well, dumbass, can you read? Come on. So that's where the angle I come at it from. This people don't understand. This push for global government has been going on for hundreds of years. It predates the founding of the United States. So that's the angle I come at it from. The thing with the crashing of the planes into the Twin Towers and then the Pentagon and then Flight 93, crashing in that field. We know these guys are Islamic fundamentalist nuts. We know that this was basically a deal where you had a bunch of different agencies of the U.S. government that were all had their own little turf war, and they didn't want to share information with each other. They screwed up. They missed a lot of stuff. I don't believe, like a lot of the people I know, that there was a conspiracy within the U.S. government to make this happen. I don't believe that. The one that I have a problem with, the more I look at, is that Oklahoma City thing, because I do not understand how a freaking fertilizer bomb, an ammonium nitrate bomb, you explain to me from a physics standpoint how a damn fertilizer bomb can cut steel I-beams in half.
Well,
I just don't believe that.
Fertilizer can. I was just watching something on that, actually, and it is possible. It can
it seems to me. Yeah, I know it can do huge damage, but as far as the steel I-beams, apparently a lot of these things were like cut in half, and it seems to me from what I've read about demolition that it would almost take like a shaped charge placed on the beam to slice through steel I-beams like that. I don't think that a diffusive concussive force could slice through I-beams the way that thing did and bring that building down. I have a big problem with that. So that's the one that I got a problem with. But, as far as the airplanes, people say...
What do you think the conspiracy was?
I'm not exactly sure. I really don't know. I know a bunch of people that have wild ideas about that, about the government being involved in it. I don't know about that.
Listen, the truth is, the simplest answer is what probably happened. Somebody once said this to me, and I think he said it in such a perfect way. Americans throughout the world are known to be arrogant. We're known to be. We think nothing bad can happen to us. It's just the way that we are. And the most American thing to do is come up with some sort of conspiracy theory, because we cannot come to terms with the fact that we are vulnerable and something really bad happened to us, and it was caused by it's not even caused by a country, just this group of radical fundamentalists. It's a very American thing to think that nothing bad could happen to us and we have to cause it. And that's the way that we cope with it.
That's an interesting observation, Andrew. You may be absolutely right about that. as far as the Twin Towers collapse, every time I look at those videos, it freaks me out because I think about every time I went to New York that I love to go to the top of the Twin Towers. I love to go to Windows on the World. I love to take dates up there and after dinner and go up there and have cappuccino and drinks, and hang out in a jazz bar. You remember that place, Spencer, and how cool it was?
Sure.
I just remember how many times I was up there, standing there at the edge of the building with my hands on the glass, leaning forward, looking down the side of the building, watching helicopters fly by underneath me. And I remember, I just thought to myself how I would have felt if I had been up there knowing that I couldn't get down and thinking that damn building was going to collapse. But as far as the actual collapse of those towers, I got so many people I know is like, oh, this was a conspiracy. And I was like, look, you didn't watch the program I watched on Nova where they explained the physics of why the thing collapsed. I mean, Nova did a whole program on that, explaining how the heat from the burning of the jet fuel weakened those beams.
But also, the real conspiracy theorists, they're concentrating on like World Trade Center 7, that there was no plane that hit it, and why did that fall down? And
I'll tell you, that's the most simplest explanation there is. The debris. You know what? I was watching something, Spence, and you kind of debunked the entire conspiracy on it because you were 2 blocks away,
right?
And your building was destroyed.
It wasn't destroyed. My building,
it was damaged.
The facade was really screwed up, and my building was really the last complete building standing in front of Ground Zero.
So, it is possible that Building 7, which was right there, pretty much caught on fire, and they said don't go and take the fire down. It's a fact.
Well, let me tell you, just living through it and being there when the planes hit, the towers, and then feeling the concussion of the first tower falling. It was just, the wave of that concussion could do a tremendous amount of damage. It literally threw me just about 2 blocks away across my living room. I had I don't know how big the loft was, 12 and a half, maybe almost 1,500 square foot, or was it 1,600? I forget the dimensions. In New York, it was a huge apartment. And we had floor-to-ceiling windows, and the concussion through the window threw me across the room. Think about that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it didn't break the glass?
Well, we were on the top floor.
And we can't ever think that a building came down when it was sitting right next to us. Some guy in the chat room just came in. He's like, oh, this is bull. But it's amazing how the people that are from some Midwestern state that have nothing to do with the Twin Towers nor have ever been in New York are the ones screaming about these conspiracies.
People are just, it's unbelievable. Listen, that's what makes the world go around. It's the First Amendment. They have the right to say and think what they want to say. Within limits. But George, you asked an interesting question. And the windows didn't break. We had the only reinforced windows in that building. So basically, they had to it was like chicken wired, So there were cracks, through the chicken wire, and for some reason those windows held up and did not completely cave in. But what's interesting is just the floor below. When we went into the stairwell, people had glass in their hair. Their windows blew in, and they were, there's a lot of damage done just because of that. We were very, very lucky.
Listen, the impact alone was devastating to buildings surrounding it. So why can't we believe that a building went down?
Dude, I was there. I was actually in the street, making my way, Yvette and I, down Greenwich, making our way down to the South Ferry when the second building began to collapse. And all we heard, my back, we just heard run. And we heard that sound like a freight train again, like when the first building collapsed. And it was insane. And when you're downtown, there are kind of narrow streets. And this is a relatively wider street, though, Greenwich. And the debris just shot through these streets, and we were running for our lives. And I just turned into Carl Lewis, man. My adrenaline kicked in, and Yvette's in great shape, and we were just like jumping over shit. And it was insane. And we went around to, was it Liberty? Not Liberty. I forgot the street, but we went around the corner as soon as we could, and the debris just shot past us. when it opened up. And it was a very, very, very scary thing. But I saw the power of that debris, knocking people over. I knew what it was doing to buildings, how it was destroying cars, just the debris. Just that cloud.
Did you breathe any of the dust, man?
Oh, my God, of course I did. Now, luckily, I wasn't there for an extended period of time, so the likelihood of being severely, permanently damaged is probably relatively low.
Was there any asbestos in those buildings?
Of course.
100%.
Dude, it was built in the 70s, bro.
I figured that those things had asbestos in them.
Dude, that debris was made of concrete, asbestos, cleaning supplies on every floor. There was glass in the debris.
Spence, I don't know if you saw the video I posted on my Facebook, and I think I might have sent it to you. Darren from the 7 line took the video. And it's actually really interesting. It's the shot that I saw when 9/11 happened. The exact area that I was standing in, he took video in 2001.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know Darren at that point.
Wow. And where is it?
And he posted the video today, where he is today and where he was in 2001. And you see the view, and it's the first time that I could actually see the view that I saw.
Wow.
On that day. And it was so, it was such a weird feeling to actually see this exactly what you were seeing on that day in the exact angle, in the exact location. And we saw the buildings come down, and he has it posted on his Facebook. I'll post a link in the chat room, actually.
Yeah. It was surreal. It was surreal. And, I have photos, and I took one photo that I put on my website in 2008. And there was one building, and I forgot the name of the building, between me and the World Trade Center. There was two. There was the Marriott, and there was just one building. And I was actually able to see the top of the Trade Center over this building. The image that I have is basically, it looks like there's smoke and debris coming off the top of this building, when in fact the top of the the Tower 2 is just engulfed in smoke. So you can kind of make out the outline of the tower from my image, but that's how close I was if you go to the site. And it was pretty unbelievable. I kind of figured the show would end up turning into kind of a 9/11 show, and that's fine. That's the great thing about this show. Joe's probably pretty upset. Let me pot Joe up.
Where did he go?
Joe,
I missed him, actually.
Joe, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry that we're not talking about hair loss.
I believe so much. I have to offer my good friend George a slight criticism, and I want to say something to Andrew. First, George, I can't believe that you really are not interested in this RepliCel story. This could change your life, man.
He is interested in it.
I did say I had a question about it, Joe, and we just haven't gotten back around to it. We kind of got sidetracked, and Andrew showed up, and so we got sidetracked. But I did say that I had a question and a comment about that.
Joe is all effing business, this guy.
I screwed everything up, George. I'm sorry.
No, he didn't screw anything up. But look, I wanted to tell you guys, on these flights I was on 4 flights, between Mobile and Orlando, and I had to go through the Atlanta airport. And I specifically did not do my seat assignments and until I got to the airport, and I told the Delta agent, I said, "Look, I want some extra leg room. Can you hook me up with a window seat, like at the exit door, because they got those bulkheads there. You can stretch your legs out." And I specifically did that because I wanted to sit at the exit door. This being 9/11 weekend, I wanted to sit at the exit door and be able to be right there and be the guy to do the exit door if need be. And I was looking around. I found myself looking around on every flight at the exit door.
I'm that guy all the time. Anytime I fly JetBlue, I am the guy at the exit door. I pay for the extra legroom. I'm not a really tall guy, but I'm kind of like on the taller side. So, to sit and coach, it's very tough for me.
Well, it was tough. It's tough for me because you got that, I've got a duffel bag, I'm sticking a carry-on bag. I'm sticking under the seat in front of me, which really impedes my leg room. I'm 6'1".
Right.
So, I was sitting at the exit doors for extra leg room, but for more anything, I wanted to be at the exit door because it was 9/11 weekend, and I found myself looking around.
See, dude, you got to be on the aisle.
And I just, I was on the exit row, so there was room in front of me, so I could jump right up. I could stand up and.
See, I purposely numb myself. I get all loaded, like not too loaded. And if I need to take action, I can take action. But I just want to make sure that there's no fear involved.
Exactly. So I found myself just looking around and scanning, and scanning and trying to, like, every flight, everybody around me is sitting there. People get on the flight, they immediately go into zombie mode. They put on their headphones and their earbuds, and they go into cocoon oblivion mode.
Yeah.
I found myself sitting there scanning and looking around the whole time, just thinking at any second. And I was thinking, man, I'm kind of paranoid like Andrew Zarian.
No.
I get myself looking around thinking any second I was going to have to kill a terrorist, you know.
I get myself
up. I wouldn't. Of course, I don't drink, but I was sitting there looking around, and I walked on the plane. I found myself looking at the pilot's door at how well reinforced this thing. It looks like they've got these heavily reinforced doors now.
Yeah.
I found myself looking at passengers, trying to look for anybody that might look like he was. I found myself profiling the passengers around me.
It's probably not going to be the guy with the beard wearing the garb that you would be looking for. Probably not that. That guy's probably not the terrorist.
It's probably not exactly.
It's the guys that look like Andrew, actually.
I found myself looking around for these dudes, and I was like on really heightened alert the whole time, and I was thinking, what the hell's going to happen? And the whole time, I wasn't really worried that somebody was going to blow up the plane I was on. What I was worried, and the reason I set up my travel so I could get home late last night and get out of the system, I was afraid that something was going to happen if I didn't get home before midnight on 9/11. Something was going to happen, and FAA and Homeland Security is going to shut down the entire damn airline network, and I was going to get stuck in Orlando or Atlanta, and everybody and his brother was, since the whole country was grounded, everybody would have to run a car, and I wouldn't be able to get one to get home. Weird, man. And all through the Atlanta airport, I found myself looking around, just thinking thinking shit was going to go down the whole time. It was not a really fun trip because of that. I found myself constantly just on. It was like I was hyper vigilant because I was just knowing something was going to go down.
Well, that's why I drink. I'm telling you. I mean, I don't get to the point where I'm loaded by any means, but I get a little bit of a buzz, and I have that liquid courage. And it's funny because I dress specifically to kick ass when I'm flying. Like,
what do you mean? What are you wearing? Like, I'm gonna kick your ass?
I'm wearing like a ninja outfit, basically. No, I wear tennis shoes, sneakers and jeans, and I wear just comfortable clothing. I will not go on with like flip flops and shorts, in case I got to run for my life or I got to kick some ass.
Well, you know what's interesting, Spence, that we and George brought up something interesting. The cockpit door is so reinforced now that they wouldn't be able to do what they wanted to do, what they did in 2001. But El Al Air, which is the Israeli airline, has been doing this since the beginning, and they've had air marshals on the plane, and it's one of the safest airlines to fly on. And I've always been curious on what was so difficult to reinforce that door, and why couldn't they do it?
It's all about economics. That's the bottom line. And look at these TSA jabronis that we got. I mean, these people have attitudes. You got these 20-something-year-old girls from wherever. I don't want to sound politically incorrect, but I mean they're smacking their gum. They got attitudes. They got these huge hoop earrings with like their names in them.
Well, the problem is they're getting paid $7 an hour, and when these people are in charge of keeping our air safe, they cannot be. You need to hire police officers. You need to hire a special division of people that are specialty trained to handle a situation like
What about
this.
Training dogs? What about having dogs there? Explosive sniffing dogs.
They're doing patch searches and they're doing all these stuff to kids, which baffles me.
Let's take a phone call, guys. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, Spencer, it's Johnny.
Hey, Johnny, what's happening, man? How are you?
Good. God bless America.
Absolutely, man. Listen, I'm paying more taxes than ever. Life is so much more difficult. I'm worried about, my money in Bank of America and everything that's been going on in this goddamn country. But you know what? The best country in the world.
You got it, man. It's better than anything else out there right now. I want to say hi to George. I haven't heard from George in a while. It's good to hear from you. And
good to hear
Joe,
your
my
voice,
hair loss
Johnny.
brother from another mother. How you doing?
Joe doesn't know what's going on.
No.
Joe, you there, man?
Of course I'm here. I'm still waiting for George's RepliCel question.
All right, George, ask the goddamn question.
Actually, I said it was more of a comment or a question and a comment. Did I understand? I just awakened not long before the show started, so all the cobwebs are not out of my brain yet because I was severely sleep deprived for the past 3 days on my journey and business trip. However, did I understand from that clip that the guy saying that I heard him talking about the dermal sheath cells, blah, blah, blah. Did I understand him to say that not only is this procedure something that would stimulate the growth of new hair follicles that would be at the correct angles parallel to existing hair fibers or hair shafts, but it would additionally create an increase in the diameter of the existing hair shafts that were there. It would thicken up the hairs that were there, create thicker, greater diameter hairs that were already existing. Plus, it would create new hair shafts parallel to those, so basically creating a full effect. So, like what you're saying,
No,
Joe,
it's not a full
actually,
effect. A full head of hair. Basically, what the claims are is that these cells, once they're injected, they migrate into existing hair follicles and reverse that miniaturization process. And where there are no follicles, where there should be follicles, or where the follicles are completely dormant, or there's no chance of growth, they actually reestablish those follicles and start to regenerate hair again.
So, in other words, this is the ultimate holy grail solution for which we have been dreaming.
This is a cellular hair transplant. Basically, this is a cellular cure for hair loss.
We could potentially get our full head of hair back with no damn transplantation crap, no scars, any of that kind of stuff. So he's actually created this effect in animals, the full regrowth effect?
Froggy, just to correct you, they actually have been able to do this in mice. So it is working for, in animal models. And, honestly, from what I understand, and again, there's only so much that Mr. Hall can say because he's, the clinical trials will be done, at least the phase 1 trials will be done. Was it phase 1? What do you say, phase 1 or phase 2? I forget now, Joe.
Phase 2 trials in Georgia.
Phase 2 trials. They're going to get all this information soon.
Long before they get to the human trials. Huh?
Now.
They're doing it right now, dude.
They're doing human trials now, so when do they estimate that they're going to, be finished with the trials and be to the point where if they get a positive
Didn't you listen to the
interview
on
the
Ball
FDA?
Truth? Didn't you listen
No,
to the
dude, I
interview?
did not hear it. I wasn't even aware of this.
Well, let's put it this way. According to Mr. Hall, they're hoping that within 3.5 years, if all goes well, that they'll be able to bring it to market in the U.S.
3.5 years. Again, here we are in the 3 to 5 year bullshit. Oh God! This is the most.
But you see, and again, that you sound like all the other naysayers. And listen, I've been around for a long time. I know what it's like to think that something may be coming down the pike, getting information from the companies themselves, who are obviously hoping that this is going to work. They don't know 100% whether or not it is going to work consistently in humans. But I have a good vibe about this company. I have a good vibe about the science behind what they're doing, the scientists that are involved. These are legit guys.
Well, I got a question. It's going to be many injections that would have to go into especially into the crown area, the vertex, because you were saying something about it's going to take sort of an artist to recreate the hairline. Well, I mean, that's not going to be something that's just, you just start, poking needles and start injecting.
Well, according to what they said at RepliCel, RepliCel. Jesus, I'm really losing it tonight. The hair actually just grows in a very small area. So basically, an injection site, they may put thousands of cells in there, and maybe it'll only cover perhaps like 1 square centimeter. It doesn't migrate too far. So you're right. How many injections and how many cells per injection? That's all stuff that they're going to be finding out during the trials. But yes, you're going to need multiple injections. They're probably going to figure out some way to, to multiply the cells and then inject them using like one big, I'm not going to say one big syringe, but some sort of an apparatus that might have multiple syringes on it. Maybe they're going to use some sort of a robot, so that it can be done, rapidly and that it can be done consistently. I don't know. And maybe what they'll do is, in the hairline area, they'll kind of, just do it by hand. I know that they're working on, or they actually have a patent for some sort of a device to inject the cells.
Well, how often would you have to get these injected? Once you have one complete cycle, that's all you need?
Well, those are all good questions. What I'm going to do is, Mr. Hall actually answered some of those questions. I'm going to take a quick break, but during the break, I'm going to play this for you guys so you can take a listen to the original interview, and hopefully it answers some of your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. I'm going to, and I think this is where I stopped the interview before, so let's see if I pick it up at the right point. Absolutely.
They're cycling properties, I should say, but as well as to generate new hair follicles.
I mean, the beauty of being able to do that is to catch hair loss early and be able to reverse the miniaturization process without having to worry about dealing with any visible or cosmetic hair loss. And I think it's a pretty major situation for women who are dealing with the initial onthros of androgenetic alopecia. If you can go in there and in 3 months inject these cells so they can stop that miniaturization process, you're going to be changing a lot of lives.
Well, we hope so. And obviously the earlier you can address this problem, the better it is for the patient. It minimizes the time they're exposed to all the aspects of that disease.
Let's talk about where you're at this point as far as clinical trials. And a lot of people have questions as to where the clinical trials are being conducted. I know that you do put some of that information on your website, but why don't you just give us a little bit of information and what are your findings at this point?
Okay, I'll share what I can. The trial is being done in Tbilisi, Georgia, at a skin center that one of the founders has a relationship with. It's being done under the clinical protocols that have actually been posted on the FDA government website. A requirement if you're going to publish the results, which is our intention.
Right.
And so the cells are being manufactured under at a European facility, or not manufactured, they're being replicated at a European facility in Austria under CGMP compliant protocols. So we are following good clinical practices and good manufacturing practices, which is for us a requirement if we're going to take this into the next stage in Europe, U.S., and Canada, which is really the direction we're headed in. Where we're at is we have injected all patients in the trial. We are in the process of the 6-month follow-up. That's the first measurement of efficacy that we will, and the only efficacy analysis that we'll be making. Safety will carry on for both at 6 months, 12, and 24 months, because you want that long-term safety data.
Sure.
But
now, right now in the trial, you're doing both. You're working with both men and women for what? Specifically, androgenetic alopecia.
Yes, and it's a double-blinded placebo control. So there's an injection of a placebo on one side, and injection of a dose on the other side. So what we're looking for, obviously, is efficacy, and clearly, if we get the results we expect, the next step is which would be conducted sort of beginning mid-2012, would be a larger dosing trial where we'd actually dose down from the dose that we have. And it would be, the trial design includes 4 injections, 1 placebo, and 3 different doses. That is designed for us to come to the conclusion of a protocol of the appropriate dose for a pivotal trial. That trial will be conducted in a Western jurisdiction under the auspices and the regulatory rules of the FDA, the EMA, and the Canadian and Health Canada, so that while we may do this phase 2 in Europe or Canada or alone in the U.S., to go into a pivotal trial, all the data will be collected such that we can go into a pivotal trial in any of those jurisdictions.
I have a question for you. As far as the dose, you mentioned dose size and different doses. What do you guys at this point estimate a single dose producing as far as, say, an area of scalp as far as hair growth or as far as hair rejuvenation? Is it like, one injection is just going to work on a, 4 centimeter squared area of scalp, or something like that?
That's a good question. And in fact, it's we'll see. This is what we're going to learn from this first trial. But what we expect to be able to do is to, remember, we dosed up in the first phase so that we could establish, a safety parameter that was way up there. So that would give us a parameter that where we could go to without knowing that we would not cause any safety issues.
All right. So when you say dosed, when you dosed up, how many doses were given in the first stage?
Well, no, I'm just talking about volume. We're talking about millions, tens of millions of cells.
Right.
When we go into the next phase, what we're going to do is in a specific area inject a specific amount of cells in three different amounts, and so in that geographic area, the scalp that's going to be injected, what we're looking for is how many cells do we have to replicate to cover a specific area. And then once you know that, then you know how many cells for a full scalp or an infill or whatever. And the thing to remember is that as we go forward, we're going to learn a lot. So, for example, if you're talking about early stage pattern baldness, well, we may find as we go forward that it doesn't take much to, in terms of injections, cell injections, to cause those hairs that are starting to miniaturize and actually cease cycling. We may find that it doesn't require much to get those things going again.
Right.
So that's the science that we have to learn. Volumes is just part of the protocol that we're trying to determine in our work.
All right. Well, here's a question for you. You're working and testing on both men and women. As you probably know, women suffer with androgenetic alopecia in a different way. For most women, it's a diffused, unpatterned type of hair loss, and the area that you guys will be biopsying might not be DHT resistant. So in other words, it might be prone to miniaturization in time, whereas for most guys, we have a certain surface area, a certain donor area of relative DHT-resistant hair. So how is that going to make a difference in this type of technology as far as women are concerned? Are women probably going to have to go in for more touch-up procedures? Is it something where we're hoping to kind of catch women's hair loss earlier on and not be quite as concerned about replicating their hair, because that hair will eventually begin to miniaturize again for most women?
Well, the answer to that is we don't know. But logically speaking, there are areas of women that typically don't suffer from the disease along the back and sides behind the ears. So that's a good question, and it's a good scientific answer that we're going to have to establish. But we suspect that you'll be able to find areas of donor tissue that will provide the needed dermal sheath cup cells that will work. But again, we don't know until we try. But a type, if you're dealing with a type 1 on the Ludwig scale for female pattern baldness, I think we believe you can find the donors, and we will see. The other thing I think, to be fair about surgery, is it is it's a pretty invasive procedure, and that just tends to turn women away from taking that procedure. I would add, though, is microsurgeons clearly are getting more sophisticated and better at this every day. And I know that surgery for women, microtransplant surgery for women, has grown.
Well, and that's
may be an indication.
That's the issue. The market is there for sure, and it's not even to me. It's not even a matter of whether or not women are going to be turned on or turned off by the aspect of surgery or this type of technology. My concern is that women are being marketed surgery, and sadly, as most professionals in the industry know, no matter how great the surgery is, if the hair miniaturizes, if the donor area is not stable, that donor dominance doesn't come into play, and it doesn't really benefit women. It will benefit them in the short term. My thing is, with technology like this, maybe we can get the hair to grow, even if the donor area isn't that stable. Maybe we can get it to cycle for 5 or 6 years. But the key is getting it growing again so that you can go back in there. So, I think that probably answered some of your questions, right, Johnny?
Yes, it did.
Good.
That's very impressive.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of naysayers, there's a lot of skeptics, and I'm one of them. But I've been around the block, and I've done this for a long time. And I can tell you that they've been doing this in humans. They're able to replicate cells, multiply cells, and grow hair. Now, the problem is, with the dermal papilla cells, like Mr. Hall said, there is a problem with clustering. What does that mean? That the hairs, sadly, might not be taking on the natural directional growth that they once had. And they could be clustering in unnatural patterns. That's an issue. Supposedly, according to what they're, gleaning from their research, using the dermal cup cells as opposed to the dermal papilla cell, or just removing that papilla, for whatever reason, the hair is growing in a natural direction without, just for whatever reason, just being told to grow in that natural direction, which I think is pretty amazing. So, I don't know. I have a good vibe about these guys. I have a good feeling that they're at least getting closer. I don't know if it's going to be 3.5 years. And if it is, listen, that's awesome. Even if it's 7 years, eventually this is going to happen. And I think people need to know that. This will be over. Go ahead.
How are they getting their funding? Is it all private? Or are they getting any type of grants or?
Well, right now it's a public company. So
okay, I understand, but I didn't know if someone's helping them with their, the finance.
No,
it can't be cheap.
No, it's not cheap. But like he says in this interview, and I'll play some more later if I have some time, which I don't have a lot of time. It's not going to cost them $50 million to bring this to market. It's not like a pharmaceutical company. It's not like a drug being approved by the FDA. They can do this for a reasonable amount of money, from conception to testing to bringing it to market, for the amount of money that they could afford. Let's put it that way. So, I think that it's real. I really do. Will it come to fruition? Will something happen sometime down the line during clinical trials? I don't know. Shit like that happens. Shit like that happens all the time. But
sure.
But they're getting closer.
This is it's breaking type of technology that's going to I think it's going to advance hair restoration for many, many years to come.
Listen, let me tell you something. I really believe, and I said this from the beginning, Joe, and you know this, you've listened to the show for 14 years. I really believe that hair loss will eventually be any chronic manageable disease. But in this case, if these technologies do come to fruition, we're going to be able to manage it without introducing anything foreign into our body. We're not going to have to take medication like you do to control diabetes. We're not going to have to take medication like we currently do to control hair loss.
That will make it come to the market that much sooner because we won't need any type of FDA approval.
Absolutely, we're using our own cells. And what's unique about this type of cell research is that they are not manipulating the cells in any way to do something different. Basically, they're just reproducing the cells to do what they're supposed to do. And that's an amazing, and like Mr. Hall says, it's a really elegant process in my view.
And like you were saying, the cost of something like this would be about what a hair transplant would cost.
Well, that's what he's saying right now.
Right.
Initially, but he also says that he believes that in time, as the demand grows, and demand is there, but as more people get involved, and as they're able to get it out to more facilities, that the price is going to definitely drop. It's going to be, but right now, listen, if it's the price of a decent hair transplant, that's not a big deal.
No, it's not.
It really isn't. Well, even if it's $20,000, Joe. If it's $20,000, people are going to find the money to do it.
Well, not only that, I mean the results will be phenomenal.
Well, that's the point.
Right. I mean, it won't be like a hair transplant.
Go ahead, Joe.
In my suit, I'm not an expert, but I do consider myself, a researcher. I believe it'll be initially around $50,000 for full head of hair, and to me, that's nothing to pay.
Well, not for you, Joe.
I'm not a rich person, but I'll get all the credit cards I can and take cash advances. I'll do whatever's necessary, and I'm sure millions and hundreds of thousands of people like me and Johnny from Ohio will do the same exact thing.
Joe, I told you the Bald Truth will subsidize your cellular hair transplant.
Is this being recorded, man?
It is being recorded. I told you that, dude.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. If they do this thing and it works, and you get a full head of hair back, they do these injections all over your scalp, like one injection every 2 or 3 or 4 square centimeters of coverage, and you get your full head of hair back. It makes new follicles grow. It plumps up the hair follicles that are existing and creates greater diameter shafts. And you get a full head of hair back. Is this something that's going to stay that way forever? You got to go back and get injections over and over and over in your scalp, or after you get a full head of hair back, will they be able to give you an injection into your arm of these cells that will then migrate to the follicles?
Well, that's the thing. Right now, the cells only migrate a very small diameter, or a very small. What's the word? A circumference.
Radius.
So it's not circumference. It would be radius.
Radius is half of a circumference, half of a diameter.
Okay.
So you got radius is like from the center of the circle out to the outside.
Right. Okay. So so that's exactly right. So right now, there's no way that they're going to be able to inject anywhere else in your body so they migrate to your scalp. But eventually, maybe they'll be able to do that. But
all you got to go back and get the damn thing done over and over and over.
Well, we don't know that yet. And according to Hall, he kind of thinks that's not going to be the case. However, I think if you have active AGA, if you're a woman dealing with it, and we're, no matter where you take the hair from, it's not going to be DHT resistant. I'm pretty sure that you're going to have to go back. But who cares? Who cares?
Listen, this all begs another question from a scientific standpoint. If this step's working now, and it is actually reversing the process of miniaturization and creating new follicles, then this begs the question: are they going to be able to extrapolate from this procedure the actual science of what causes miniaturization in the first damn place? I mean, we know a DHT is involved, but that's not the only thing.
Well, I don't know if they might be able to, but the truth of the matter is, if it works, who the hell cares?
Well, look how many effing drugs on the market now that tell you that they don't understand the exact mechanism of action of the damn drugs that people have been using for decades.
Right.
But I just wondered if the scientists were able to use this to figure out what is the trigger in the DHT-sensitive cells that causes miniaturization to start and continue. If they can reverse it, hopefully they'll be able to figure out what causes it in the first place and avert the whole damn thing.
I don't give a shit, and I'm telling you what's going to happen is once this comes to fruition, we're all going to get it done. We're going to get hookers in Vegas, and Yvette's going to be fine with it.
I'm looking forward to that day, man.
We're going to go to Bobby Flay's, or we're going to go to Emerald Steakhouse in where's the steakhouse? And it's I forgot the hotel. We're going to get loaded. We're going to eat red meat. You too, George. And we're going to get hookers, and we're going to celebrate.
Really?
It sounds like a winner to me.
You're invited, Johnny.
Well, I appreciate that, especially with the red meat and the hookers. I tell you what, I'll spring for the first bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. How's that?
Absolutely, man. You know, and I'll take that Johnny Walker Blue, and Joe's going to buy the meal for everybody, and we're just going to have a good time.
Yes, they will.
Hey, dude,
George can pick up the hookers.
I'll make you a deal right now. When this day comes, not only will I go, I will get drunk. I will get shit-faced.
Dude, you're gonna have to smoke a cigar.
I will get drunk. Yeah. I will smoke a cigar. I will get drunk. I will smoke a cigar. I won't do a prostitute. Sorry, not going to go there. But I will get drunk. I will smoke a cigar. And hell, if it's like a wild. I haven't had a piece of meat since I was 24.
Dude, you haven't had a piece of ass since you were 24.
Now look, you're engaging in hyperbole. Man. I know that. So the thing is, I'll get drunk.
I apologize. I admit that.
I'll get drunk. I have a cigar. I might even eat a piece of like wild deer or something like that. I might even have a piece of red meat if it's like wild venison or something.
Spencer.
I mean, I will really.
Froggy wants to know if Yvette's on board with those plans. I will tell you that she would be if I was able to get this done. She knows, first of all, this is what's going to happen. This comes to fruition. I'm opening up the first clinic in Los Angeles and possibly in New York. So we're going to be celebrating with a hell of a lot of money besides me having a full head of hair. And yeah, I think she'd be on board with the hookers. I mean, why not? One night. That's night.
Right. Sounds like an Elvis song.
She could watch.
Yeah.
No, by the way, see, Froggy's a woman, so she doesn't get it. I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm probably not going to get hookers. I'm going to get hookers for George, though, because George needs to get laid.
I guarantee after a couple belts of Johnny Walker Blue, he'll go for the hookers.
Dude, they're going to be high-end hookers.
I would appear in a commercial pro bono for RepliCel.
Dude.
They hooked me up, man.
They won't need to advertise. There'll be no advertising. They're going to get it's going to be like Viagra. When Viagra came out, they didn't need to advertise for like years. Now they have these crazy guys, these old guys like playing guitar and shit. Those are very funny ads, by the way. Very depressing, but very funny.
You're on your A game tonight, Spencer.
Thanks.
You guys bought my words. You're gonna have multiple therapies coming out all at once. That if you hear Murphy's Law, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Bought my word.
I agree. But what's going to happen? What's going to happen to that site that you frequent? All these guys they're not going to have anything to do with their lives.
Well, they should get off the wrist to go get a job.
What the hell is Richard Dawkins going to do with his life?
Maybe get a job.
These guys, I read what these guys write. They come to Ball Truth Talk, and I can't even believe it. I can't even believe they take the time to do this. There's such conspiracy theorists, and some of the posts are like 1,000 words.
You see, they've attacked you in your RepliCel interview, like vicious dogs. They've attacked you.
Dude, I've been attacked since I started this. I used to be attacked on alt.baldspot. I don't give a shit. That's just the way that it is. The public, it's fine. They that's freedom of speech. If someone makes false claims about me, that's a different story. But as far as the public, as far as the consumer, if they're out there saying, hey, you know what, Coburn's full of shit. I think this is the case, and he's not saying this, and he's saying that, and that's all part of free speech. I'm fine with that. It's the way that it is. Everyone has. I think people have the right to their opinion. They just don't have the right to make up the facts.
Well, I don't know. All the things you're presenting to the public, all the interviews, all the information, all the people you've gotten, the stories you've written. anyone can say that you're trying to suppress the cure for baldness is beyond comprehension to an old person.
And I appreciate that, Joe, but you know what? It is what it is. To me, it's entertainment. I read what these guys, write about me, and it's like, as long as they keep talking about me, as long as I remain relevant, that's what's important for my life and for my business and for what I do for all of you guys. Just I remain relevant. That's it. You can talk shit about me all you want.
If they're talking about you, leaving somebody else alone.
That's right.
That's right. I mean, the thing is
they're focused on what I'm doing. They're taking the time to watch what I do, to listen to this show, to read what I have to write, and to listen to what I have to say, and that's what matters.
You got to remember, Spencer, they're shooting up at you because they know you're on the top of this.
Well,
it doesn't look good if you're shooting down.
Yeah, well, that's very nice of you. I appreciate it.
It is, man. I mean, you are the, and I don't mean to...
King of the hair loss office.
Well, yeah, he is. I mean, he basically... Well, I wouldn't...
I'm the king of the freaks, man. I'm the king of the freaks. I was like that in high school, too. I used to talk about it all the time. I was like Michael Anthony Hall in 16 Candles. I was that kid.
That was a good movie.
Except I was like this weird... I was like a thin kid, but I was an athlete. So I kind of felt more comfortable as far as my friends. My friends were kind of like the geeky guys, but I was always invited to all of the jock parties, and so I was the king of the geeks because these kids that I hung out with thought I was so cool because I was always part of the A crowd, but I never felt like I was part of that crowd. I always felt like I was kind of part of the B crowd. So I became king of the geeks, man, and that was my thing, and I'm still the same way. Not that you guys are geeks, believe me, but I'm just saying, I'm the king of something that I never wanted to be involved in. This is a fraternity that God Almighty, I had no idea that I would ever be involved in something like this.
Spencer, if everything that you've said hypothetically were to come true with this new advanced technology with RepliCel, yes, there are going to be a lot of people that's been hammering on you that's going out of business because they're done. I mean, the party's over.
Well, I understand the guys that are hammering on me who are in business, who are in this. I kind of get that because
I'm talking about your rivals.
Oh, those guys. Those guys are idiots in my view. They're not. I don't even consider them rivals. These guys think they're in competition with me, but they're not. Well, they just do their thing. In my view, they do their thing illegitimately, and I think they take advantage of the vulnerability of you guys, just like some of the guys who are selling products and services do. So, but you're right. I know where you're going, man, with this. So you're right about that.
But it's going to be. I think the church bells will be ringing.
Well, Johnny, you know what? I know that I converted you because when you first came onto the Ball Truth, man, you were hard as nails.
You say that. I never thought I was, but you say that I was a hard ass. But it may have been because I was nervous and I didn't know what. Again, Spencer, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I mean, I basically believed everything was on the internet.
Yeah, I understand that, man.
Spencer, I would say Johnny was an angry person when he first came
on. Very naive.
No, he said angry.
No, he said angry person.
Did I really come across as angry?
A little bit. You came across as you really kind of tried to put my back against the wall initially, and I'm cool with that. And
I did. Well, if I did that, that was never my intent,
dude. I think I won you over after the first.
You did
after the first phone call, dude.
You did. I mean, you were very polite. You were very, you answered all my questions. I mean, I guess a lot of it is, Spencer. You've been burned, like I've been, and Joe and many others. You're so, you're so standoffish. You're so. You don't want to believe it. You can't. It's hard to believe something when you know that someone else has screwed you over and told you.
I get it, man.
And you hear this story. You've heard it a million times. But
even with what I do, there are guys that get burned. I do the best that I can to especially when it comes to the surgical side of things. I founded the IHRS. I did it because I really wanted to separate the great doctors from the not so great doctors. I chose to to make it an extremely elite organization, and because it was so elite, I had to figure out a way to earn money doing, creating this organization. So what I chose to do is charge an annual screening fee. Every organization in the country charges a membership or a screening fee. My screening fee is about the price of a hair transplant. And I got all kinds of shit from people who could not make the grade and be a part of what we do. But the truth of the matter is, and this is not to pat myself on the back, but it's true. I created the first recommended list in medicine. There was never, ever a place where you can go and see a list of physicians who were vetted. It just never existed. So because of that, I was, telling the truth about the industry, sometimes when you tell the truth, the first reaction is just hatred. People don't know how to react. And with that said, no matter how hard I try, because we're dealing with surgery, you can go to the best doctor and still have complications. And that happens. And every time I read a story or get a phone call from somebody or get an email from somebody who might not have been completely thrilled with their outcome with an IHRS member, it makes me feel terrible. But what I try to put out there is, in my view, and you know this, Johnny, surgery is, a complete last resort. Surgery is something that if you cannot deal with hair loss, and if you make the right candidate, it's really possible that you can improve your life if you find the right surgeon, if you take the right precautions, and if things work out for you. But there's always a chance, anytime you go under the knife, that things aren't going to work out. And I know I went off on a tangent there, but I still deal with this. Every once in a while, someone comes out on the forum or wherever, and they're like, "I went to a doctor and I'm unhappy with the procedure."
Well, I hate to put it in. Let me put it like an automobile. You could buy a car, and it could, with no problems, and it could be, Consumer Reports could say, this thing is the greatest thing since, Model T.
Right.
And Joe may get one that's a total lemon.
That's the way that it is, man. And people need to realize that. And there's no guarantees when it comes to anything. I had incredible success with finasteride. Changed my life. I mean, it takes nothing for me to, to get wood. I'm 46 years old. I never had an issue with that unless I was totally loaded. But as far as the medication is concerned, never had an issue.
How old were you when you started on?
I was 27, I think.
Do you think if you'd have started that earlier, had it been out earlier, you'd have started in your 20s, early 20s, like 1920, it would have been a different.
I don't think that I would have had a recessed hairline, and I wouldn't have had a comb it the way that I do, and no makeup needed. So, yeah.
You really think it would have definitely?
There's no doubt, in my experience, that it basically stopped it where it was, and I've maintained it for almost 20 years.
Now you take one tablet, 5 milligram, twice a week?
I take it maybe average about 3, maybe 4 times a week, depending on the week.
Okay, so and you're taking 5 milligrams of Proscar, right?
Yeah, and I used to take it every day. I used to take 5 milligrams of Proscar every day for years. I never had an adverse side effect. Now that's not to say that it doesn't happen. I see it all the time, but I mean, the internet is just. I mean, in the last few years, guys are going crazy about this. They're so fearful of this drug.
I don't understand it myself, but I mean, again, it's sort of like it's what you're talking about in terms of, one guy may have a bad experience with a great doctor. That could be the same thing with Propecia, finasteride.
So we got a guy on our forum right now who had a bad experience with one of our doctors. And the truth is, if someone had a bad experience, that's just the way that it is. We don't remove that stuff, and unless the patient asks us to remove the post. And you probably know who I'm talking about. And right now this guy is going on there, and he is so unhappy with what happened to him in his experience. And I kind of feel bad. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the doctor. And I'm just kind of watching it play out. But the truth is, it could happen to anybody. And like Froggy just wrote in the message forum, in the chat room, medicine's not foolproof.
No, it's not.
Shit happens. And it's just a sad fact of life. You want to get your eyes done or whatever, your nose done. You can go to the most respected doctor in the world. And for whatever reason, that day, maybe he made the wrong cut, or, your body just didn't heal right. that's just the way that it is, man.
But when you look at the physicians that you endorse and their track record, I mean, you know, the odds are you're going to get a pretty good result.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what's important for people to realize. Guys who are going on Bald Truth Talk, who might read one guy who had a bad experience with a really highly recommended doctor, you got to look at the stats. You know, this is one guy that may have found him through either our site or another site, and just, you know, they're using our site to vent, whatever it is, because we allow that, you know, we allow these guys to speak their mind. You got to take it for what it's worth. You got to take it for what it is. You know, there's guys that I have sent to IHRS members who are, you know, like great friends of mine. I would never want them to be harmed, and they've had great experiences.
Well, you've had some that have been strikeouts, and you know, by these doctors, and you're going to have that. And then you've had some that hit grand slams. I mean, the majority have been home runs or grand slams.
Well, that's the truth. The vast majority are, you know, you get really great results. The problem is a lot of guys, once they're burned like you, they're like, okay, I got burned. I don't want to go back. Most of these guys can be repaired, especially if it was only one surgery. And that's, you know, it's not over till it's over. And that's what you guys who are out there have to understand, that you may have had a bad experience. It's not necessarily the doctor's fault. It's just, you know, just bad luck.
Well, in my case, and Joe's, it was the technology at the time, you know, the minium micrographs. And
but I also blame the doctors, because the truth is, even though the technology at the time was inferior, these guys knew what it looked like. These guys
the guy that performed mine, he knew.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew. I mean, he took advantage. He's seen that I was desperate. He took advantage of the situation. And, again, we didn't have the Bald Truth with Spencer Coburn. We didn't have that back then. So it was one of those things where you believe the guy because he's a doctor.
Well, what year was this?
93, 94.
Yeah. I was in diapers, man. Are you kidding? I'm just kidding.
Now you are breaking my balls.
I know. All right, guys, listen, I'm actually going to go get some food. It's 8 minutes after the hour. I went over time. And I just, you know, if you guys want to check out what's going on with RepliCel, go to RepliCel.com. And Joe, thank you so much for doing what you do for the Bald Truth, man. You're an incredible asset to the show. And don't worry about what all the guys out there are saying about you on these message forums. Fuck them. Don't even worry about it.
That's why I say.
May I congratulate you, Spencer, on an excellent show tonight. And again, I want to say thank God your life was spared on 9/11.
Joe, man, I really appreciate that. You know, I know that you are one person that really appreciates my existence in this world besides my dog, Hunter. So I consider him a person, by the way. So
what about Yvette?
Good night, John. Good night,
you know,
George.
I question Yvette sometimes.
You are on your A game tonight. You know? God bless America, and God bless for all those that survived 9/11 and those that didn't have had people that perished. You know, my heart goes out to them.
Well, thank you for that, man. George, man, great hearing from you. I'm glad that you finally caught back up with the show. Yeah, I know you were MIA for a couple of weeks, probably because my lines were screwed up, but hopefully that's all fixed now.
Well, I did not hear you breaking up tonight like you normally do. And I don't know what you've done in the interim period to rectify it, but you were clean and clear tonight. And you know, all I can say is that I got tonight what I come to the Bald Truth for. I got re-energized with another shot of hope right into the arteries, because I'm now envisioning what life could be like without this hellish nightmare, as Joe calls it. I got a taste this weekend of what it could be like when I was going through the airports after doing my 25-minute hairdo, to hide the thing, and it looked like I had a full head of hair.
Yeah.
And I was like going out and flirting with chicks in all the places in the airport, and all the new shops with hot young girls, and I was having fun and getting positive response. And I thought, damn, it could be like this every day if I didn't have to feel like I was like a fraud, with this head full of makeup and having to worry I was going to get
But
busted.
that's the point. That's what bothers me, man. It is that way every day for you because you're able to flirt with the girls. Girls are attracted to you. Women are attracted to you, but you hide. You're in hiding because you're afraid to admit that you have to do this. But you're almost 50. I do not believe that women will not accept you if you tell them, listen, I wear this stuff in my hair to give myself a fuller-looking head of hair. I'm almost 50. Look how great I look. They're not going to give a shit, dude. And you're stifling your own life. You're putting your life on hold, and you got to live for today. And it bothers me when you tell me this because there's no reason why you shouldn't, except for your ego. You're afraid to admit that you have to do this. You think that women are going to recoil and like they're going to be mortified if they find this out. You're not 25 years old anymore, dude. It's okay. It's okay to do what you're doing to look good. Most women, if they're over the age of 25, they're complete frauds, and even under the age of 25.
Complete fraud.
What are you talking about? As soon as they find out that they put on the war paint, it makes them look attractive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I see these women, and the only way they look totally hot is with the war paint and the push-up bras and the fake nails and the fake tans and maybe even fake hair. So what are you worried about, dude? Let it go. Just let that shit go and enjoy yourself.
It's good to hear from you, George.
I'm trying to, man. I'm trying to, and I appreciate your encouragement on that, and same for you, Johnny. I appreciate it. And Joe, thank you so much for what you do, Joe. I really appreciate having you bring this stuff out, and that's just one less thing I have to research. But
but think about me. I'm gonna let you guys go in a second. I got to go. But I guess it bothers me because I hear you. You're such a smart guy. I know you're a good-looking guy. You're letting the years pass when, in fact, women would probably die to be with a guy like you. And you have this insecurity because you think that you're somehow a fraud. And there's not a woman on earth that is attractive, really attractive, or hot, or that you see on television that is not completely a fraud, in my view. Just try to put that, into perspective and realize that's the truth.
You have a good point there, man. You have a good point there. Cognitively understanding that, and then, but is one thing, and getting over the hurdle and dealing with it and pushing forward is another.
What do you think it's going to be like for me? What happens if Yvette dies or leaves me? I tell the world that I wear paint on my head.
Oh, you are on your A game, dude. You are.
But I can tell you this: I don't think I'll have any problems getting women. I really don't. I got a lot of hairspray, paint on my head. Screw it. They're still going to enjoy me. They're once they get past that, they're like, it's really no big deal.
But man, you're a superstar, man. That changes things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Dude, I'm a Z-list celebrity. I do a hair loss show. I'm the king of the sufferers. That's ridiculous. All right, guys, listen. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to pot you guys down. The website's thebaldtruth.com. For the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, it's ihrs.org. Remember, all doctors who are accepted into the IHRS pay an annual screening fee of a minimum of $12,000 annually. For the American Hair Loss Association, AmericanHairLoss.org. If you're a woman dealing with hair loss, please check out Women'sHairLossProject.com. And if you want to join us on the message forums, if you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, you need to vent during the week, check out BaldTruthTalk.com. Until next time, be strong and God bless.
I'd like to thank all of my guests today. They did a swell job in showing us how easy it is so that we can really do it. If I can do it, they can do it. You can do it. Bye-bye for now.